You are listening to the Air Raid Hour with hosts Judge Mathis, dog, Tilt Money, dog, presented by the fine folks over at the Cover One Sports Network, dogs. Bills Mafia, let's go!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Air Raid Hour pregame edition ahead of the Bills game today against the Steelers. I am your host for today, David Tilton at Tilt Money on Twitter. I am joined more frequently now by Mr. Uber Hansen at Uber Hansen. Hansel, of course, as you know him from Reddit fame and Twitter fame, will be joining me for the pregame show today. We are going to try to keep it to a tight 45-50 minutes to let you guys all get situated before the game kicks off at 1 p.m. today. The Bills enter today 3-1, not in first in the AFC East due to tiebreaker with Miami, and the Steelers come in 1-3, dead last in the NFC or AFC North, I should say, and second to last in the conference, only ahead of the Texans, who have not won a game yet. We are presented by Picasso's Pizza today, as we always are, and Cover One is the only place you can find the Air Raid Hour. Picasso'sPizza.net, serving you great pizza from the Buffalo area since 1983. So, Hansel, I know you came back today from Lake Placid. We're on a nice little getaway, sir. Coming back, had some time to think through some things on the drive back. So how are you feeling generally today as we kind of get into just under an hour from kickoff here against the Steelers?
Yeah, so I don't know about you, but like an hour before every single game, I start to get really nauseous. I'm really anxious. So right now, I'm not feeling great. It's not because I think the Bills are going to lose. It's not because I'm really particularly nervous about this game. This is just my reaction to my Bills fandom. I'm constantly feeling sick. So about probably kickoff time is when it'll start to drop, and I'll be like, "Hey, we have Josh Allen. We'll be all right."
That's kind of how I felt really all week. Like I was going back and thinking, okay, yeah, we lost to the Steelers in week 1 last year, but in my mind, it's not even really comparable, right? Yeah. That Steelers team last year going into week 1, they still had Ben Roethlisberger, right? They still had that really good defense. TJ Watt was obviously healthy for that action. Week 1 is always a bit of a weird week in the NFL. It's a little bit unpredictable. You kind of have an idea of who the good teams might be and who the bad teams might be. But the Bills' offensive line obviously got beat around in that game. Yep. This fast forward to a year plus later, the Bills going into this game as 14 and a half point favorites at home, coming back home after what seems like not having a home game in a long time, really since the Titans game. So it's been a while. And the Steelers are starting the Kenny Pickett era officially as his first start today. They started it last week against the Jets mid-game, but Kenny gets his first start today against the Bills. And I want to talk a little bit about that spread because the fact of the matter is the Bills are 2 touchdown favorites at home. The Steelers are not a good football team. The Bills are obviously a good football team, but dealing with just an amazing amount of injuries this year, this Bills team. And it feels like we kind of went from one extreme to the other when it came to the health of the team overall over the past couple years, outside of Trey White's injury aside, to this year, where it seems like the injuries just continue to pile up. And obviously the Bills are without some key players today. For those of you who have not seen the inactive list today, the inactives today are Isaiah McKenzie, did not clear the protocol in time to be active for this game. Jake Kumro, who we knew was going to be out. Jordan Poyer, who was already ruled out. Christian Benford. Tremaine Edmonds is inactive today with that hamstring. Justin Murray is inactive, which we expected. And Dawson Knox with a hamstring and foot injuries also out. So while it had been relatively stable on the offensive side of the ball from an injury perspective the first couple weeks of the year, we now see some key people out on that side of the ball with Isaiah McKenzie and Dawson Knox. So injury-wise, where do you generally where's your thought process right now with this team from an injury front? And then specifically for this game, how much do these injuries you think matter? How much should the Bills kind of play on the side of caution, knowing you've got the Chiefs next week without having to really kind of say you're looking ahead, but maybe you are a little bit looking ahead? So like, what's your philosophy when it comes to injuries, knowing the Chiefs are a week away?
Yeah, so this has been kind of a concern of mine all week. I got some flack for it from some Bills fans, but I'm steadfast behind my opinion on this. Uh, I don't think that the Bills should overlook the Steelers by any means. I agree with you. I don't think they're a particularly good team. I think the Bills are a very good team. But with that in mind, like a loss this week would be devastating, especially when you consider their next game is going to Kansas City, which is by no means a guaranteed victory. And then you get the bye, and then you have to play the Packers. And I know the Packers aren't playing great football right now, but they still do have Aaron Rodgers. So there is really a scenario right now where the Bills could be 3-4. I'm not saying that'll happen, but I would be a little concerned if the Bills were specifically benching players to try to get them healthy when they can play. I do think if this was a playoff game, some of these guys probably are in, but I'll say this about the injuries. Micah Hyde has always been, to me, the most important player not named Josh Allen on the Bills. He's out for the year. We know that. So then I shift to Jordan Poyer being the most important player not named Josh Allen on the Bills. Losing both of them for any game, let alone a couple games now this year, is a huge concern to me, just because they're so dynamic and so good at what they do. I'm not taking anything away from Jaquan Johnson or DeMar Hamlin, but they aren't all pro caliber players. And then you add into that, like, Tremaine Edmonds, he's not going to play, like our middle linebacker. That's gigantic. I know, again, polarizing figure, but a huge loss. And then the offensive side of the ball, McKenzie and Knox are also big. This is all to say, like, look, I think the Bills, even with the talent that they're losing to injuries right now, they're a significantly better team than the Steelers. But 14-point favorite, like, I'm a little more concerned now that they're not going to cover that spread, just because, like, these are big injuries. These aren't just, backup players or your 20th best starter. These are legitimately superstars on the Bills team that aren't playing today.
They are superstars, and obviously we saw what happened in that Miami game without Jordan Poyer. Tua took advantage, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Now the Steelers are not on the same caliber. Whatever you want to say about Tua, right? Tua with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle is light years ahead of what Kenny Pickett is likely to offer you today, or the Pittsburgh Steelers. And not having Poyer for this game does hurt. But as Aaron here says, he says, I'm overlooking the Steelers, but I'm not a player. And I understand where he's coming from there. We had some good conversation in the Cover One group chat over the last couple of days around just this general philosophy around, resting guys to get them ready. It's a very long season. There are some positives from the injury front in this game. Gabe Davis comes in this game with no injury designation. We'll see if that truly means, and we can tell that he is really back to health. He's been a slow recoverer in the past, so that will be nice. On the Steelers side, the inactives for the Steelers, notably led by Khalil Witherspoon, one of their free corner signings. So Levi Wallace is going to get the start today at corner. It's a little bit of a revenge narrative for him, maybe. And Terrel Edmonds, the safety. So both Edmonds brothers, on both sides of this battle, Tremaine on the Bills and Terrel Edmonds out for the Steelers. Some others out for the Steelers: Kendrick Green, the guard; Gunnar Olszewski, the punt returner and receiver; Isaiah Loudermilk, the defensive tackle; and Mark Robinson, the linebacker. Also Mason Rudolph, which is not a surprise. But the Steelers, obviously, they're still missing TJ Watt. And so that's obviously a big blow for them. But healthier than the Bills overall. I think Khalil Witherspoon's probably the biggest miss that they're going to have today. They can still get after the quarterback a bit, but they're just not the same team. The Steelers defense is bottom third in the NFL in giving up passing yards. However, they are 10th in defensive DVOA. So taking into account opponents and things like that, the Steelers statistically are still not a terrible defense, 10th in DVOA. So that is something to kind of note there. And on a ball security front, even with the 3 interceptions that Kenny Pickett threw last week against the Jets, the Steelers are still +1 in turnover differential this year. So even with Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett, they've still been on the positive side of the takeaway ratio. And so they're not going to, Kenny Pickett might give you an easy one, but like the Steelers generally are not going to give you, easy takeaways per se. Now, Kenny Pickett's the wild card. So let's get into that first and talk about this Bills defense against this Steelers offense. Obviously, we mentioned Tremaine Edmonds out, Jordan Poyer out, Christian Benford out. Dane Jackson, Kyer Elam will be the starting corners. We'll have the Starting safety tandem of Jaquan Johnson and DeMar Hamlin together. Defensive line, Ed Oliver back, Jordan Phillips back. That's a big boost to this front. And I think that's really probably where we start this conversation, no?
Yeah, I mean, Ed Oliver's a huge get, So we lose Jordan Poyer, which is a massive blow, and we lose Tremaine Edmonds, a massive blow. But Ed Oliver, like when he was healthy early on in the season, he looked dominant. And you factor in his dominance along with how Groot and Von Miller are playing right now. Like the primary thing that the Bills are going to try to do today is pressure Kenny Pickett. You pressure Kenny Pickett, force him to throw the ball before he wants to in his first start ever in Bill Stadium, like that's going to cause issues. That's the recipe for disaster, right? Like if the Bills can pressure Kenny Pickett, this could be a nightmare game, a la David Davis Mills from the Texans last season. I don't know if that'll happen or not. I don't know what to think of Kenny Pickett. That's the one thing that's making me nervous about this. If it was Mitch Trubisky, I think I'd just be like, okay, we know what's going to happen here. Kenny Pickett, though, he could be incredible. He could be awful. We really don't know how he's going to play today. I would lean more towards the awful just because it's his first game. But he's the wild card, like you said, for this game.
Yeah, and I think Aaron makes a good point in the comment section. Like Kenny Pickett does increase their ability to potentially get more explosive plays. They have some good weapons on that Steelers team, right? They have Chase Claypool, they have Deontay Johnson, George Pickens has been coming on lately for them. Pat Freiermuth has been a nice pickup for them. So between, Deontay Johnson and Pat Freiermuth, you're talking about, 41 receptions on the year between the two of them. Both of them are over 200 receiving yards on the year. George Pickens has come on as of late. He has 11 catches for 167 yards on just 11 catches. So he's averaging 15.2 yards per catch and did show some nice chemistry with Kenny Pickett in that game last week against the Jets. Now, so that does, that does give you the potential if you're the Steelers that you could potentially have some explosive plays down the field. And that really hasn't been in the Steelers' repertoire the last couple years with a fading Ben Roethlisberger, right? A lot of their pass plays have been near or at the line of scrimmage, relying on guys like Deontay Johnson to get yards after catch. A few plays down the field to Claypool here and there, but nothing of significant volume. But there is that element now that Kenny Pickett could be, pushing the ball downfield as much. And as Aaron says here, Pickett won't be as conservative as Trubisky. The Steelers still have Mike Tomlin, and he's a very good coach. He's never had a losing season as a head coach in the NFL. He's been 500 or better in every year he's coached. It's not looking great for him this year. How much of a factor do you think Mike Tomlin has in potentially getting this team ready and maybe making this game a little bit closer for comfort than Bills fans would really want?
Yeah, I mean, Tomlin very clearly probably one of the better coaches in the NFL. I mean, he's been doing it for a long time. Like you said, never had a losing season. So he's going to have the team obviously ready to go against the Bills. And I think that he will reduce that talent gap slightly, right? There's obviously a large talent gap between these two teams right now. And I think that Mike Tomlin, in a way, does negate that. But at the same time, you have a rookie quarterback. I think that's the biggest thing right now. It's a rookie, inexperienced quarterback. So Tomlin can coach him up all he wants, but the second he steps on that field, like he played at Pittsburgh in college. Now he's playing with the big boys, playing with the Bills, who arguably still have one of the top defenses in the NFL, even though they've been missing these superstars. And one big thing that Kenny Pickett's going to have to deal with today is this super complex coverage scheme that the Bills have, which basically is the main goal of it is to get you to be confused and throw the ball where you think there's an open receiver, when in reality you have somebody spying to kind of jump that route. So I talked earlier about the pressure that the Bills are going to try to put on Kenny Pickett. You add that to the fact that the Bills are going to try to confuse him with these schemes, in the back end with Dane Jackson and Jaquan Johnson, DeMar Hamlin, and Teron Johnson, all those guys. I think that Kenny Pickett's going to struggle. So at the same time as I think Mike Tomlin will have an effect on this game, like he might be able to keep it close early on, I think that Pickett's struggles are ultimately going to be what kind of leads to the demise of the Steelers today.
Yeah, and so continuing kind of to talk about that Steelers offense, Kenny Pickett, who he has protecting him, Chucky Okafor, Dan Moore, the tackles. You've got Mason Cole as a center who's actually graded out really pretty strongly this year so far. Per PFF, he's the 6th rated center out of 36 qualifying for grading. Kevin Dotson at one guard and James Daniels, their prize free agent signing that they pried away from Chicago at the other guard spot, 13th qualifier out of 68 guards. So they have been better on their offensive line. This was like one of the weakest points of their team the last few years. Obviously, Najee Harris hasn't gotten it going on the ground really, even with these additions. He's still averaging only 3.5 yards per carry. So, I mean, for me, this is a pretty simple approach if you're the Bills, right? Keep Najee down below that 3 yards per carry average. Don't let the Steelers make significant positive yardage on first down. Please force them into third and longs and let that defensive line go to work. If you were the Buffalo Bills, I can't see really a scenario where all of a sudden Najee Harris busts out for like a huge yards per carry game, but he's still someone you got to be concerned with. And that offensive line for the Steelers, Walter, I think the Bills defensive line now with Phillips and Oliver back, to me, presents the biggest matchup nightmare now for this Steelers offense going against this Bills defense. So, what do you make about what the Steelers have been doing, try to retool that offensive line? And, how much of a factor do you think Najee Harris can really be in this game?
Yeah, so I was reading some comments from some Steelers fan, like on their subreddit, on Twitter, things like that, and they seem more confident with their offensive line this season than they were last season. But at the same time, realizing that it's still not a top tier unit. I mean, at best, they're probably average, right? And with the Bills significantly above average defensive line, one of the better defensive lines when healthy in football. I think that's the mismatch. That's the biggest mismatch that the Bills have today on the defensive side of the ball. I will say I do have concern with Najee Harris. Right, his yards per attempt is pretty rough to look at, and for the talent that he possesses, he made the Pro Bowl last season, and he has a career rush yards per attempt around 3.5. I think that's just not good enough. The thing is, today we don't have Tremaine Edmonds. Like, I think Bills fans will be in for a rude awakening. Like, without Tremaine Edmonds, this defense is going to look very different. I don't know. I don't think we know yet if it's Dodson or if they're going to try to put Bernard in. I guess we'll see there. But that's a big downgrade from Tremaine Edmonds. And if Najee can get himself into the second level, he could cause some issues. Like you said, I don't see a gigantic game from Najee, but I could see one of his better games this season just because the Bills are so banged up at the second and third level.
I agree on that, right? That's going to come down to Daquan Jones, Jordan Phillips, Ed Oliver, kind of making life easier for the linebackers and these, backup safeties, right? If Najee can get through that defensive front, there's no Edmonds and Poyer up the middle there today. It's going to be, probably Dodson would be my guess first crack, and then obviously Jaquan Johnson. So while it's nice and we know we're very familiar with the Bills' depth and we feel pretty confident that the depth will be serviceable enough to kind of get the Bills through this game, there is an opportunity there if Najee does get to the second level to kind of have a decent game. His game's always been predicated on volume as far as piling up his statistics. And so, the Bills can do a lot on defense to make that, game script him almost out of the game from a running standpoint. He still can be involved from a receiving standpoint. Jalen Warren's been playing pretty good for the Steelers as kind of a complimentary back for them. So, to be honest, like Warren out of the backfield, catching passes might even worry me a little bit more than Najee. And that's not really a knock on Najee. It's more of like, I think that's where like you could potentially get the Bills on defense. So any other final thoughts on the Bills defense against the Steelers offense before we talk about Bills offense, Steelers defense?
Yeah. I mean, I think just to summarize, I think even with the injuries, the Bills are significantly better defense than the Steelers are offense. But like I said, my main concern is, what is Kenny Pickett? If Kenny Pickett comes out and starts slinging it, the Bills defense could actually struggle today just because of the injuries on the back end. Again, don't expect that just because Sean McDermott and in his history and Leslie Frazier and the Bills' history against rookie quarterbacks, it doesn't look good for rookie quarterbacks. And I still think Dane Jackson is a very talented corner. I think Khair Elam is getting better and better each week. And Jaquan Johnson, DeMar Hamlin are fine safeties. So it's not like the Bills are dropping to some practice squad caliber players. They still have NFL caliber talent that Kenny Pickett's going to have to contend with.
I agree. And Aaron comes in and says, thank God for Taron Johnson. That should be said every single day. Carry on. I agree. Pat Fryermuth could be an issue, potentially a matchup issue for the Bills today if Taron Johnson's, maybe covering George Pickens out of the slot, or if Deontay Johnson moves into the slot a bit, like he'll have his hands full there. Will Milano be kind of the main guy that we expect to cover Pat Fryermuth? If so, I feel a little bit better about that game, but that could be a mismatch if Fryermuth gets on Dodson. That could be a potential area Steelers exploit. And like I said, at the onset, they do have when you look at the Steelers skill position players just on paper, they do have talent, right? And it's going to come down to what Kenny Pickett can do facilitating the ball to that talent. So remains to be seen, and we'll find out shortly. Now, Bills offense against the Steelers defense. Steelers missing TJ Watt, Achilles Witherspoon, as I mentioned. Levi Wallace getting the start today. The Bills will be down Dawson Knox and Isaiah McKenzie today. Kumaro is obviously still out, so you would expect that starting three receivers to be Diggs, Davis, and Khalil Shakir in the slot. I would imagine, as we know, Jamison Crowder have been placed on IR. The Bills' offensive line is healthy going in this game. They have their starting five from left to right with Dawkins, Saffold, Morse, Bates, and Spencer Brown. The running backs are healthy as well. So overall, on the offensive side of the ball, I feel like the Bills can absorb some of these injuries, just like they have done on the defensive side of the ball. So I know Aaron started the show by saying Khalil Shakir breakout game. Diggs, Davis, Shakir, Knox is out, so we'll get some Quentin Morris as well and Tommy Sweeney. Quentin Morris and Khalil Shakir, what kind of roles do you see for those guys today filling in for guys like McKenzie and Knox?
Yeah, so this might be a bold take. I don't know if it is or not. I think that the Bills' 1-2-3 receiver today might be their best 1-2-3 receiver they've had all season. I say that for two reasons. One, Gabe Davis seems to be healthy. And if Gabe Davis is healthy, then you have two legitimate receivers on the outside. With Khalil Shakir, I think that he could fit that more traditional slot role just because of his style of play over someone like Isaiah McKenzie. And now Jamison Crowder out for the year is kind of disappointed in his level of play the first couple of weeks. So Shakir getting a shot this week is huge for me because it might actually improve the offense in a way. As for Quentin Morris, Dawson Knox being out, I think is big. I think Dawson Knox is one of the better tight ends in football. However, Knox really hasn't been used much this year. Like he hasn't been targeted much. He hasn't caught many balls. So Quentin Morris, I think, can fill in for Dawson Knox simply because we haven't really been using our tight ends, or Josh hasn't really been looking for the tight ends. I think Morris could probably make a play or two. I think the real thing that we've seen is it's Reggie Gilliam is the tight end fullback hybrid. That's our biggest receiving threat right now until Dawson Knox gets going, which I expect at some point this season. So I think Morris can play well enough to kind of fill that role for Knox. And I think Shakir, maybe not a breakout that some Bills fans want, like 150 receiving yards, but I could see Shakir making some plays today just because they're going to be so uber focused on Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis if Gabe's healthy.
And Brendan, I do think Shakir will be turning at minimum punts. I think you could see maybe James Cook back there returning kicks. I've mentioned this multiple times. Kick returns today in the NFL are really, unless your kicking strategy is to force a team to return a kick by kind of trying to kick a high one into the corner, it's a touchback almost every time, over every other time. So fielding the punts and fielding them cleanly and just retaining possession, even if they're fair catches, that's what I'm looking for from Shakir. Ball security today. I don't care if he actually even returns a single punt, as long as he fields every single punt cleanly and the Bills keep possession. And it looks like the Giants just toppled the Packers in London. So congrats to Brian Daboll and the Giants for knocking down the Packers. Not sure what to make of the Packers. I still think they're a very good team, but maybe the Giants are better than we think. And that defense and Saquon Barkley kind of, with Daniel Jones doing enough today, they get the win in London. Very interesting there. I agree with you on Dawson Knox, right? They haven't used him a ton so far this year. I think that breakout is coming. But my thing right now for the Bills is avoiding negative plays on first down, right? You look at the raw statistics, and the Bills are third in the NFL in total offense from a yards per game basis, but they're only 19th in first down offense per DVOA. And that tells me that they've really been struggling to get positive first down plays, and they've been kind of getting bailed out by Josh Allen on third downs. Like they're top 10 third down DVOA offense, but Josh Allen is masking a lot of those deficiencies the Bills have had and generating, successful, positive first down plays. And so while the offense overall statistically looks okay, first down really has been an issue for the Bills this year. So, for the Bills going up against that Steelers defensive front, which is still pretty solid, people, really piling on the Bills run game the last couple weeks. Like, a lot of people saying we need to get this offensive line, better run blocking. Kendall did a good breakdown of the film showing that, like, there's a lot of contact happening behind the line of scrimmage on our running backs on run plays. Like, is this offensive line what it is? Do you still think it's a work in progress? Where do you see the Bills taking this run game today? And how can the Bills get better on first down?
Yeah, so I think the offensive line running the ball has been an issue for years now, right? I think people want to point to the running backs because it's easy to do. But if you go look at, for instance, Devin Singletary's stats the past few years, he's one of the most contacted players behind the line of scrimmage in the NFL consistently. Yep. And I don't think that's necessarily completely on the offensive line, right? Singletary does like to dance a little bit. But I think Singletary's ability to dance and avoid contact or kind of, move out of contact is a reason why he's the best running back on the Bills with the issues that they have up front. I think that this offensive line is going to improve as the season goes on. I don't think we're ever going to see this season or a running offensive line that's dominant. That's one that presumably, for instance, the Colts should have. Not that that's really working out for them this season. I think my thing more so is I want to see a running back get in rhythm. And even if the offensive line is struggling, just consistently feeding one running back, maybe giving them a breather here and there. And for me, that guy's Devin Singletary. I don't want to see Devin Singletary get one drive and then Zach Moss get a second drive. I really don't see the reasoning behind that. And I've seen enough out of Zach Moss where I'm at a point right now where it's like, just run Devin Singletary. Use James Cook in some sub packages just to get his feet wet as the season goes on. But that's where my head's at, right? Like, I want to see Singletary be the bell cow moving forward.
I agree. And I do want to see, I want to see Singletary be the guy that gets the bulk of the carries, but I still want to see James Cook involved in the passing game. Now, I know the Bills potentially are going to be tipping their hand in that regard, but at the end of the day, Singletary can play out of the backfield as well. And if James Cook's on the field, the fact of the matter is the Bills pass so much anyway that it's like teams should be expecting the Bills to pass on every play. And when they do run, if I'm an opposing team, anytime the Bills run the football, that's a win for me if I'm the opposing team.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that the Bills can't or shouldn't run the ball and can run the ball better, but like you would still take your chances as an opposing defense for the Bills running the ball and forcing them to go on like 10, 12 play drives than having Josh Allen sit there back in shotgun and have him read the field every play. So, and it looks like maybe I was a little premature on that. Congratulations to the Giants. There's still a little time left, but it doesn't look like the Packers are going to win anyway. But yeah, I'm with you. Singletary should be the guy. There are a couple bad negative first down running plays last week against the Ravens, but that's kind of been the norm for this Bills offense and this offensive line. I really liked those sweep plays, those toss plays the Bills were doing in the first couple weeks to the left side, specifically with Singletary getting behind Dawkins and Saffold. It worked well against the Titans. It worked well against the Rams, especially. So I'd like to see a little bit more of that today. If you're the Bills, you look at the Steelers, defense, and they're missing obviously Terrell Edmonds today. Playing down in the box, that should help. Maybe the Bills at the second level get some more space. You would say that Devin Bush is not a great matchup for the Bills running backs, so maybe running to the outside today, not going to be the easiest. We know Devin Bush is a really good sideline to sideline linebacker, so I don't expect the Bills necessarily to have a ton of success in the running game today for those reasons, but I would like to see that when they do run the ball, that it's more of a concerted effort to Devin Singletary as the one toting the ball, but not opposed to James Cook being involved today in the passing game. I think last week was kind of a bummer for James Cook. I thought, he had that early drop and kind of wasn't involved in the game from there on, but you rewind a week prior and he had a really kind of nice little outing against the Dolphins that kind of went under the radar. So James Cook's a as we say, a wild card pick potentially on the show, and we'll get to that here in just a moment. But at the end of the day, this is going to rest with Josh Allen, and that's why the Bills are still 14-point favorites in this game. Gabe Davis not having an injury designation, I think, will bode well for his chances to make a better contribution than he did for his one catch effort last week. And Stephon Diggs is still who he is. So that's where I really see the Bills taking the most advantage today, on the outside with Davis and Diggs. And I think Josh Allen can have himself a day as long as that offensive line holds up. And other than that, I think the Bills should be in control of this game from an offensive standpoint at home. A little bit of wind, but really not bad conditions today. Cold, but no big deal. So any final thoughts on the Bills offense against the Steelers defense before we get into the superlatives?
Yeah, I'll say I like what you said about James Cook. Like, at least get him involved in the passing game. And while the Bills could tip their hand, like if that's what they end up doing, they're like, all right, we put James Cook on the field, we're throwing the ball. That's fine if the opposing defense thinks that the Bills are going to throw the ball, because you have one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, if not the best, and you have one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, if not the best. So even if you know the Bills are going to throw the ball, they can beat you in that facet. And then the added effect that Josh Allen has, because his legs are so good, like he's such a good running quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you know the Bills are going to pass it, Josh can run it and pick up 6 yards a carry, which I think he's averaging right now. I think in regards to this game, I don't really see a reason why the Bills shouldn't absolutely dominate on the offensive side of the ball. I will say two people concern me. One, Cameron Heyward. He's a future Hall of Famer, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
He's an absolute dominant force in the middle. And if he starts giving, Rick Bates, Mitch Morris, Roger Saffold trouble, that could spell issues for the Bills today. And then the bigger one to me is Minkah Fitzpatrick. If Minkah was not playing today, I would be super comfortable on just saying the Bills are going to absolutely boat race the Steelers. But with Minkah playing, even if he's not 100% healthy, he's such a good safety. Like, he could force 2 turnovers by himself and completely change the flow of this game. So Minkah and Cameron Heyward are the 2 guys I'll be monitoring. But at the same time, like I said earlier, the Bills have Josh Allen. And if you have Josh Allen, you should essentially win every football game you play, and at a minimum dominate on the offensive side of the ball.
Yep, 100% agree. And that's why I like the matchups going to the outside with Davis and Diggs. Kind of take Minkah Fitzpatrick out of the game as much as you can if you're the Bills, knowing that you're not going to have Dawson Knox over the middle or Isaiah McKenzie over the middle. I think attacking the outside is your best chance for success if you're the Bills. So we're going to go for about 10, 12 more minutes here and run through our superlatives and game predictions so that you guys have time to get ready. Every week, if this is your first week joining us for the pregame show, we do our pregame superlatives of the week, and we lead off with our Take Me Higher player of the game. This is obviously caveated by the fact that Steve and I have agreed that we will not allow ourselves to pick Josh Allen, because we probably would pick him every week. But as many of you have enjoyed over the years, here is our superlative for Take Me Higher player of the game.
Can you take me higher to a place where blind men see?
Beautiful.
And that's our boy Bruce exclusive, Bruce Nolan, singing there for us on that clip. We got dinged by Creed in the past for using their music, so we just took care of it ourselves. So Hansel, who's your Take Me Higher player for today's game?
Yeah, Matt Milano. I love Matt Milano for a lot of reasons, but he's been playing at such a high level this season, which is awesome to see. But I think he's more important than ever this season today because of the loss of Tremaine Edmonds. So you're looking for Milano to slow down the run and also solidify the middle of the field, especially with a player like Pat Freiermuth at tight end, who's good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's someone Kenny Pickett's going to look at. He's going to look at Pat Freiermuth. He's going to look at Najee out of the backfield as players like his pressure release valve to get the ball to. So Matt Milano, to me, he needs to play a good game, and I fully expect him to play a good game.
I was going back and forth on this one, and I like the Milano pick. I was going back and forth on this one, whether to take Diggs, because I really like his matchup, or Von Miller, because I really like his matchup too. And at the end of the day, I think that the matchup for me, we know Kenny Pickett potentially has more ability to make explosive plays than than Mitch Trubisky. And I think Von Miller's due for like a real breakout game, right? He had that really good game in week 1 against the Rams, and he's been kind of like, he's been doing his thing. I'm not taking anything away from him, but like this could be a day where like it's a box score stat stuffer for Von Miller. Like if the Bills get up and Kenny Pickett in his first career start is like trying to lead this Steelers offense back, and they're in a lot of 3rd and longs, I could see Von Miller just being an absolute closer today. So I like Von to kind of have like maybe another little mini breakout game today, especially if the Bills get up and force the Steelers into kind of a negative game script. So give me Von Miller as my take me higher player of the game. All right, next up we've got probably one of our favorites. It's the wild card player of the game. I completely whiffed on this last week. I thought James Cook was going to have a bigger role. Maybe I was a week too early, but wild card player of the game. Who's
Guys, why aren't the brakes working?
Because I cut the brakes! Wild card, bitches! Yeah!
What?
So wild card player, this is the player that maybe we're not talking about a ton, maybe who's getting an opportunity today. Not one of the main sort of guys we always talk about. So who's your wild card player for today's game?
Yeah, so I wanted to say Khalil Shakir, and I think that's probably a good pick. Interestingly enough, I'm going James Cook. So I'll take your week early, and I'll make it today's pick.
Okay.
I think that the Bills want to get their running backs involved in the game somehow, because maybe they don't care about the outside noise and what the public's saying about the running backs, but I do think they need to get some sort of production out of the running backs, whether that is running the ball or catching the ball. And I think James Cook, motion him out of the backfield today, put him in the slot, especially with Isaiah McKenzie's injury. He could have a big day today. So he's my wild card player.
I hate to use this player as a wild card player, but I still don't know if he's 100% healthy. And I know he doesn't have an injury designation going into this game, but clearly it's affected him the last 2 weeks, and that's Gabe Davis. He had only the 1 catch last week. He is coming into this game with a really good matchup. Like we mentioned, Khalil Witherspoon is out. Levi Wallace getting the start. I just feel like Gabe Davis, if he is healthy, could be a big factor in this game with the matchup against keeping the ball maybe more towards the boundary, keeping it away from Minkah Fitzpatrick. He doesn't need a ton of volume to make his presence felt. You know, we've seen him have these like 4-catch 100-yard, 4-catch 80-yard type games. And the only reason I'm really picking him as a wild card is because I still don't know that he's 100% healthy, even though he doesn't have the injury designation. So I want to see him kind of rebound today and make a significant contribution, especially knowing guys like McKenzie and Knox are out today. So give me Gabe Davis as my wild card player of the game today. In comment section, I want to know who you guys think your wild card player of the game is today. I've seen some here. I got one from Zach here. Dotson. It's a good pick. Dotson's an interesting one, right? Filling in for Edmonds. I like that. Could Dotson really help out, kind of shutting Najee Harris down, maybe chipping in and helping shut Freiermuth down? I feel like Dotson has played okay in the chances he's gotten to play on defense. He hasn't been spectacular, but he hasn't been bad either. So I like Dotson. We got a Tommy Sweeney from Troy Gabrielson here as a wild card pick. That would be interesting. Quentin Morris, I think, is another popular one maybe as a wild card pick in the absence of Dawson Knox. Can Quentin Morris have himself a day? That would be quite interesting. Kind of like Quentin Morris maybe as a good one, but there's some good ones there in the comments section. Up next, we've got our respect me player of the game. This is the player on the opposing team that you have to respect no matter what, even as bad as the Steelers may be coming in this game, and even as heavily favored as the Bills may be coming in this game. We learned through that Jacksonville game last year to not ever really take a team too lightly. So here we go.
I pure, straight hate you. But God damn it, do I respect you.
There's some good choices here. I'm going to let you go first. I've got a couple. So in case you pick one that I've got some in the holster here.
Yeah, I mean, I've said his name a few times now. Cam Heyward. I think he's just an absolute force, and I think he could be the key to the Steelers stealing this game. Like if Cam Heyward can cause pressure up the middle, that's going to cause issues for Josh Allen. And I think Heyward has the ability to both finesse or, play the strength game up the middle. And I think with the way the Bills have been struggling to run the football, I think Cam Heyward will keep them struggling to run the football. I see Cam Heyward absolutely dominating today. I see him dominating him every week. So Cam Heyward's my pick. There's another guy I would have picked that I mentioned earlier, but I'll let you go before I say anything else.
I mean, there are some good options, right? You do have to respect Deontay Johnson. You do have to respect Cam Heyward, as you mentioned. But to be honest, I think in this game, you do have to respect Pat Freiermuth. And that's the kind of guy I'm going with, just given Edmonds. And Milano is going to probably be doing a lot of coverage on Freiermuth. But if the Bills wanted to get creative and maybe use Milano, rushing the passer a bit or whatever. But, Freiermuth is a guy you have to respect. He shouldn't be overlooked. We talk a lot about Deontay Johnson. I mentioned George Pickens, so I think you need to respect too, but he's still a rookie. Freiermuth, he can do damage in the red zone. He could be a safety valve for Kenny Pickett if they do get into a situation where Kenny gets into a rhythm and they do start completing some passes. Like, to me, Pat Freiermuth is a guy that you need to respect. And what I will say to the Bills' credit is they have done a really good job defending the tight end this year. Obviously, we saw what they did to Mark Andrews last week, so I hope that they give Pat Freiermuth the Mark Andrews treatment, respect him. Wow, and we've got an amazing super chat coming in here from Jeremy Gugino or Gugino. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but I mean, what can I say, Jeremy? Thank you so much for this. I mean, whatever other comment you might have or take on the game, please put it in the comment section. We'll read it. It says, love the show, guys. Keep it up. We really appreciate that. We try to bring you guys some really good Bills-centric pregame, so you don't have to watch the national media type stuff where, I know in recent years they've given more attention to the Bills, but they still, still not maybe as much Bills talk as we really want. Can't get enough of it. So, Jeremy, we really appreciate it, man. Thanks so much for that super chat. So I'm going to say Pat Freiermuth, for my respect, me player of the game. Maybe it's a little bit of a soft pick, but I still think you got to take him. So next one's a fun one. This is our hot take for the game. Something that's really unlikely, but hey, if we pick something that works out, you can really puff your chest about it. So.
Oh my God! We're having a fire sale. Oh, the burning! It burns me. Evacuate all the school children. Oh, mate. This isn't a fever. Sing, Greg. Can't even see where the knob is.
David Cross gets me every time. So hot take for this game, and just want to quick shout Zach here. National broadcast is like 2 minutes and then done. Commercials cover one pregame every time. Thank you, Zach. There are a lot of options to watch pregame content, so we really appreciate you tuning in. What's your hottest take for this game?
Yeah, I'm going to go negative here. I think Josh Allen's under more pressure today than he has been all season, meaning that the pass rushers are getting to him. Whether or not they're bringing him down for sacks, I'm not sure, but I think at the end of the day, we're going to see a pressure rate higher than he saw all season. Cam Heyward, I mentioned, I'm really high on him, but they also have Alex Highsmith. And Highsmith, I think right now is second in the NFL in sacks, and few people talk about him. So I think that the Steelers, they know that they have to pressure Josh Allen. I don't know if that means blitzing Josh Allen. That's not always a good idea. But if you can create pressure up the middle, force Josh Allen to scramble, and then you have Devin Bush, who's one of the more athletic linebackers in the NFL, chasing him down, it could cause some issues for the Bills, both throwing and running the ball. So I'm going to say Josh Allen is under a lot of pressure today, which could cause some struggles.
I like it. My hot take for today is the Steelers will score less than 10 points. I think the Bills defense comes to play today. I know they're undermanned. I know they don't have Jordan Poyer. I know they don't have Tremaine Edmonds, and this is why it's a hot take, but they do get the beef up front back with Ed Oliver and Jordan Phillips. And I think that in itself is just going to cascade its way to the rest of the defense. Von Miller, Groot have been awesome this year. Daquan Jones has been awesome. They have that full defensive front ready to go today, and I think they can make life miserable for Kenny Pickett today in his first start. And with that, I do think that the Steelers will turn the ball over to this Bills defense. Maybe not an interception, but maybe sack fumble or two could be in the cards for the Bills, creating some really negative plays for that Steelers offense. And so my hot take for today, Steelers under 10 points total for the game. And I hope I did not just jinx the Bills. And that leads us to our final superlative before the game. And that's our game predictions, where we paint a picture, give an idea of how we think the game's going to go. And obviously our final score prediction.
We're sending you back to the future.
Back to the future! Back to the future! Back to the future! Back to the future! Back to the future!
You're on mute.
Yeah. Paint a picture for me. I had to unclick that video. Paint a picture for me how you think this game's going to go, and give me your final sort of score prediction.
Yeah, so let me start this by saying I don't think this game is a lock. My score is going to say otherwise, but I do not think this game is a lock. I do not think it should be treated as a lock. The Steelers are still a NFL football team. They still have really talented players. They could find a way to steal this game. I don't see that really happening. I see Josh Allen essentially coming out early and putting up a big score, creating a big lead and trying to force Kenny Pickett to bring them back. If they can force Kenny Pickett to try to bring them back from a big deficit, I think that the Steelers are going to really struggle. They want to run the ball. They want to keep the ball out of Josh Allen's hands. They don't want to throw the ball into that secondary that's going to be trying to jump some passes. So I see early scores. I see by, let's say, maybe early fourth quarter, mid fourth quarter, the game's already away. Like, you can pull starters at that point in time. So game prediction for me, and I had this in my matchup preview, I'm not changing it. Bills 41, Steelers 13.
Bam, man, that would be nice. And Brandon comes in and says, Brandon, thanks for the super chat as well. He says, I gave up predictions when I realized I'm trash at them. Thanks for the Hey, look, don't feel bad. When they show those records of the quote experts on before every primetime game, look how many of those guys are like under 500 just picking games. Like, I mean, no one's good at it. All right. We just pick them because it's fun. And, if we get it right, we like to brag about it. If we get it wrong, we don't like to talk about it. So it's fine. Look, the Bills have struggled. Like, they're 1-1 in their last two games, but they've kind of struggled the last two games. And Miami obviously lost. Ravens, they came back, had a great second half, but it wasn't a perfect game by any means. I think the Bills are looking today back at home, comfort of a 1:00 game, which McDermott loves. It's lining up, I think, for the Bills to have a nice week this week. And so I like the Bills to jump out early. I think the Steelers should be and will be playing from behind for most of this game, to your point. And so I like the Bills to kind of start pulling away from this one. I don't know that they're actually going to score 40 plus points, but I do think that that spread's tough for me. I mean, on my prediction, I'm going to have them covering because obviously my hot take was that the Steelers score under 10 points. But I'm going to go ahead and say Bills 28, Steelers 9 will be my final score prediction. The Steelers 3 field goals, keep them under 10 points, or a touchdown and a missed extra point somewhere to keep them under that 10. Just to keep them under that 10 that I predicted for the hot take. So I'll say Bills 28, Steelers 9 as my final prediction. We're about 10 minutes away from kickoff here. So Hansel, first, thanks for joining me, of course, as always. Anytime. And two, any final thoughts as we kind of get close to kickoff here?
No, I think this is a gigantic game. And I think people are kind of downplaying that. I think if the Bills find a way to lose this game, and it would take the Bills losing this game, not the Steelers winning this game, for the Bills to lose. I think there's going to be some big issues kind of moving forward. I don't expect that to happen. I want to see the Bills come out and absolutely dominate today, and then get ready for the biggest rematch of the season, probably against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Totally. We've got 35-7 here from Chris, 31-20 from Zach. We also have a 31-20 from McNizzle. Reed comes in, a longtime listener and follower of the Bills guys, and the Air Raid Hour says 40-19 Buffalo. We got a Steelers fan in here, Jeff. That's great. We welcome you into the show, and you've been very cordial with the comment section, which is not always the case for some of the opposing fans, commentators. So go Steelers from North Carolina. I'm in North Carolina myself. He says 31-15 Steelers. So I love the confidence from Jeff as a Steelers fan. If that happens, wow, man, Bills had a rough day. So with that being said, we'll let you guys go. Give you 10 minutes to kind of get ready for the game. Pour yourself a drink. Get yourself some food. Don't forget to sign up for the Cover One Pass. Gets you all that exclusive content, analytics, film room breakdowns. You get the free swag as well. Go to cover1.net to sign up for Cover One Pass. And we are now 10 minutes away from game time. So for all of you in the comments section, for Hansel, for myself, Tilt Money, we thank you for joining us on the pregame show at the Air Raid Hour. And let's get that win today. And until next time, tomorrow, where we do our post-game reaction show, go Bills.
Go Bills.
And let me make sure I can get the outro appropriately this time.
Are we having fun yet?